It's been a little while since I've done one of these. And firstly, I want to just wish you all a happy new year, calendar new year, because I personally believe the new year is in the springtime. So, what do I want to talk about today? I've been on quite a journey, so it might be a more personal one today. However, I like to always weave in just what this human experience is all about. And when we're going on a big external journey, adventure, we're equally going on an internal journey, an adventure. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And if I were to be specific about a theme, it would be really, what is it like when we stretch ourselves beyond our comfort zone and into the unfamiliar? And the ways in which that's exciting, but also the ways in which that's terrifying, because when we put ourselves outside of our comfort zone and into the unfamiliar, our very identity gets a little bit rattled. And I think this is why so many people get stuck in their patterning. Even if it's not serving them, they're stuck in their patterning because there's an identity in that. And the familiarity of that identity feels safe. We get scared when we're unfamiliar, when we're going into the unknown. And yet that's where growth happens. And so I want to share a little bit about my journey and what it's been like for me, but diving into what it takes and what it means and how it takes so much courage to take external adventures, but also it takes great courage to do the inner work. So let's see how we can weave it all together. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So for those of you that have been following me, you might know that I have been seeking for a new home, or to at least move on from where I have been for many, many years, because I just felt like I'd done all the work that I could there, and I wasn't growing anymore. And so I've made a very radical change in my life. I packed up my 4-bedroom house that I've been in for 7.5 years almost, and I put everything into storage and kind of said goodbye to where I've been living for a long time now, although of course I will always have family and friends and roots there. But really, just opening a big door into the unknown. And I have booked a flight. I'm currently in Mexico, where I'll be for the next 4 months exploring, and then we'll see where to next. But I think these next 6 months are going to be about, well, where is home? And that's a profound question in and of itself, right? Because ultimately home is where the heart is, but we also want the external to reflect the internal. But, at the core of all of this is I really needed change. I was in a space and place of just monotony. It felt like an endless Groundhog's Day. And I know that life is what you make it, and meaning is what we attribute meaning to. Life is actually one experience after the next that in reality is actually just neutral. It's the meaning that we give to it, whether we give it good meaning or bad meaning or, any shade of gray in between that. So I was really, needing to come out of my shell. There was a part of me that felt like my spirit was really dying, and maybe that sounds dramatic, but I just was in an environment that wasn't conducive for growth. And I wasn't happy. For a long time, I wasn't happy. And I knew that I needed to branch out. I knew I needed to enter the world again and be more amidst people, but also in a place that has vibrancy and life. Where I was living, it was a very small little kind of mountain village town. Nothing changes there. The people are quite provincial. I don't mean that in a patronizing way, but it's just very simple and very same, and it's kind of 60 years behind, and it will probably forever be like that. And now I've put myself into a position that is like the complete opposite, going from everything was known, as I said, somewhat mundane and predictable, the daily routine, the Groundhog's Day, the safety of it all, but the boredom of it all. Because safety, to me, we live in a society that is so obsessed with safety, but I think really what we're looking for is freedom. Freedom to just be free and to feel okay within that freedom. Safety is often a reflection of how we're trying to control, and control comes from a place of fear. Now, inner safety, as far as do we feel safe within our being, that's I would say it's a little bit different. Sometimes the English language, or just language in general, is so limiting because there's so much nuance. But I think ultimately we want to be free, not just safe. And part of being free is also being free of our own limitations and restrictions and our fear. And so mine obviously is one that right now I'm in this externalized exemplification of that. But wow, what it's triggering inside of me is immense. And I want to commend the people that not only are doing this on the external level, whether you're making big changes in your life, but actually it's equally profound if you're doing the internal work and making internal changes, because both are stepping into a big, big unknown. And we stretch ourselves, these experiences and this process and growth is literally stretching our metaphoric skin, and then we need to grow into it. We need to step into a larger version of ourselves. And that can be exhilarating and exciting, when I was packing up my house and like, wow, I'm finally creating change, and I booked my flights, and I don't know where I'm going to be. I only had the first week for accommodation, and I'm doing it step by step. There's an excitement of that, right? Because there's an aliveness, and that was something I was really wanting, is I wanted to feel alive. I was feeling so kind of dead on the inside. And that absolutely has happened. There's definitely an aliveness. When you get out of the routine and the habit and the sameness, you are going to feel very alive, because you go into a kind of hyper reality. We can't be asleep because we're not in the routine anymore, that we can kind of go on autopilot, right? So you're in this hyper reality, but what it also triggers is, so many things, but it really triggers our inner child, because our inner child needs safety, and it does like predictability, and it likes the familiar and the known. And I was kind of laughing at myself, because I thought any one of the things that I've done in the last couple months would be enough. Just packing up a 4-bedroom house and moving is enough. Leaving a country I've lived in for a while is enough. Then going to a completely new country on the other side of the world and not knowing anyone and not knowing where I'm going or what I'm doing. I mean, it's the polar opposite. And I've had to really just allow my nervous system to adapt to that. And it has taken an immense amount of bravery and courage. And I think this is the thing. I think sometimes we think that when we're creating change, we want it to be all beautiful and exciting and inspiring and rosy and without fear. Like, oh, it'll be right if there's no fear. And no, that's not true at all. When something is right because there's kind of a divine flow with everything and it just feels right. There's something that says, yes, do this. I was very much asking for signs, and they would pop up in conversations. And I just knew. I knew that it was the next right step. And I think sometimes we need to just do that. What is the next right step? Because even right now, I've got 4 months here, and when I think of the entire 4 months, I get overwhelmed. But when I think about what is just the next right step, I can come into the present moment and take it one step at a time, because ultimately that's the only thing we have is right now. And of course, planning can put ourselves at greater ease, but there's something very interesting to being very much in the present moment and remaining in that present moment, trusting that present moment, staying here and allowing that to be a place of safety as we're making these really taking these great big strides. So I've thrown myself into a totally unfamiliar environment. And like I said, there are parts that are really exciting, but there's also been like terror, I can feel my solar plexus. I can feel my nervous system. I can feel my inner child that's like, whoa, this is unfamiliar and I don't know this and I don't know anyone and I don't know where I'm going and what is it going to be like. And I'm so grateful that I've been on this path for decades now where I can be with it. It's like everything that I've done the internal work for is being put into practice now. And I think this is a good example of, I've often said, remeditation. Meditation isn't about sitting cross-legged on a cushion for 30 minutes and trying to have no thoughts. We do that so that we can do the things in life that scare us and be okay and know that we're there for ourselves when we get scared, when we get nervous, when we get insecure, when we don't know, when we're confused, when we're anxious, when we're afraid. All of these things, the practice, the inner work is so that we can be present with self-awareness and with kindness and love and compassion as we stretch ourselves. So whether you're going on an external journey or an internal process of letting go of old selves, shedding old skins, stepping into the unfamiliar, it's going to take a great amount of courage and bravery. And guess what? It's going to be very uncomfortable sometimes. And you're going to want to lean back into the familiar. I mean, there was a moment in the first couple of days because I was unwell, and then I got better, and then my daughter got unwell. And it's just processing, it's purging. It's a big change. It's acclimatizing, it's adapting. I really trust that the body knows exactly what it needs to do. But there was a moment that was like, I want out, like abort mission. I want to go back home. And I'm like, well, but where is home? I don't even have a home anymore. So really, in a way, you could say I pulled the rug out from under my feet. But what you find is that it's like I've been asking for big positive change. And I feel like the universe, I can feel her palm on my back and she's like pushing me off the edge. And she's going, just see, you'll have wings. Don't worry. And so here I am, free falling, trusting that I'm sprouting my wings and that I will fly and that it will get easier and smoother, and even the newness will become familiar, but in a different way. And as I say that, it's like, well, I don't want to just get attached to another familiar, but I think we get comfortable with the unknown, comfortable with the uncertainty. And the greatest piece of peace and comfort is, are you there for yourself? Are you there when you're scared? Are you there when you're excited? Are you there in the celebrations as well as are you there in the moments where the tears come? There's no answer. There's no manual to this life. But what I've really learned is that you can do anything and everything if you show up for yourself in the process of it, without judgment. That's always the key, right? So life takes courage. Life takes really a lot of courage. And we've grown into a very comfortable society. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you find yourself wanting growth, wanting inspiration, wanting something that is going to make you feel alive, you're going to have to do something that scares you. If you're wanting to change a pattern within yourself because the way that you've been showing up in life, the patterns that you're getting yourself in, the types of relationships that you're either in or you're not in, or you're attracting or finding yourself in again, or that you find yourself alone, or whatever it is, or maybe it has to do with your work and your career, but you want to shift something, you're going to have to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone into the unfamiliar, and you will get scared. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's unfamiliar and therefore uncomfortable, and it's going to stretch your skin. So why am I sharing this? What's the point of all of this? Because I believe in living an enlivened life, and I think fear keeps us from doing a lot of things, and nobody gets on their deathbed and regrets the things that they did. They regret the things that they didn't do. And often we don't do a lot of things because we're afraid to do it. And I get it. There are times where I'm so deeply uncomfortable right now that, oh God, if I could just go back to my cozy home and the safety and predictability of that, but I didn't feel alive. And I was in a place where I wasn't meeting people and I wouldn't really be able to do my work. And God knows where this is going to take me, but at least it's shifting things. It's creating movement. It's getting myself out of stagnancy. And I think there's nothing bad about that. And all of it is good. Because whenever I've pushed myself and made myself uncomfortable, I've always gained wisdom. And it's always opened doors, and I've discovered more about myself and life and this world and people. And I do think that deep down we want to grow. This is the school of life. Our soul has come here to grow. And sometimes it needs to grow through discomfort, which is different than suffering. I don't think we need to be in perpetual suffering, but I think we do need to get beyond the kind of cushy, comfy zone. Especially if we want something to change. We just have to take the risk. And I know I've talked about that in the past. It's easier to not do the work. It's easier to not push ourselves. Again, whether that's an external adventure like what I've done, or if that's just going to see a coach or a therapist. Or if that's leaving the relationship that feels like it's going nowhere, or if that's working on the relationship that's not going somewhere and facing hard truths. No matter what we do as humans, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, psychological, it takes an immense amount of courage. But I think if we can be with ourselves and get comfortable, that they say, do something that scares you every day. Because then you get comfortable with stretching yourself. You get comfortable with stepping into the unknown a little bit more every day. Because ultimately, I think the place that we're wanting to get to, that place of freedom, that place of happiness that comes through inner peace, ironically requires us to not be in our comfort zone. We can find safety, inner safety, because we're there for ourselves as our greatest friend and companion and champion in whatever we're doing as we're stretching ourselves. But what's the word I'm looking for? Complacency is actually, it dulls our heart. It dulls our spirit. It dulls our sense of being alive and having this adventure, which life is an adventure. But I keep on just coming back. It's not going to come without fear. It's not going to come without what the hell am I doing? That you want to fall in love, you're going to have to take a risk. You want to go for a new career change, you're going to have to take a risk. You want to move to a different part of the world, you're going to have to take the risk. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. I can feel the richness of the wisdom that comes just in being in the unknowing. And I can also feel the wisdom that comes with, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we nurture ourselves? How do we love ourselves? How do we listen to ourselves? How do we be in fear and hold it with love? So this is really just an invitation, as always. It's always an invitation, nothing more than that, to think about where are the places in your life where you might be holding yourself back without judgment because you're scared, because rattling your identity feels terrifying, and yet you're wanting to reach a place of freedom. And freedom is you get to be who you are, free of the patterns and habits and belief systems and structures and maybe even places and people that make you feel constricted, small. And sometimes the constriction and feeling small and feeling pained actually comes from our own inhibition to not take the risk of living life. And when I speak to clients, that I can feel their desperation for wanting their lives to change, especially when it comes to relationship. And they're stuck in a pattern of behavior that they're so wanting to change. But they keep on making the same choices and repeating the same patterns and the same behavior that drive those patterns. And at some point, we have to be willing to just do it differently. We have to be willing to take the step off the ledge and trust that we will sprout wings. It's all an unknown. All of life is an unknown. The best thing we can do is step into it, holding our own hands, and feel the feelings as they arise. Because they're going to come up. Feel them, be with them, listen to them, learn from them, and keep going. Keep going. So I don't know where this journey is going to take me. And I'm hoping that I can settle into a place where it will become easeful from a state of being, right? But right now I'm the cat in a new room, checking it out. And it's okay. It's okay. So I want to encourage you to take the risk to stretch yourself, to step into the unfamiliar and the unknown, to explore. Because this is all an experience anyway. And nothing can actually really touch us, right? Because we're infinite, immortal beings. But just having this what feels like a very finite experience of being human. But it's good to stretch our human selves. It's good to allow our spirit to guide us into uncharted territory. Because that's where we grow. So as always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.